Okay, class, let's go to group 2. So we have Selma, Ricardo, Jessica, and Aimee. So start with Selma's work. So Selma, this was last week's work right here. So just doing a bit of a comparison of how things were looking, and this is this week's. So I like how you're dividing things up on the page very clearly using your grid. I think that looks great. The one thing that I am kind of seeing that's a bit problematic is the type of font that you're using for your title. Even for this version right here, I'm not sure what's going on here with your title, the 3D text, and even the all caps text here. So I kind of prefer seeing the text a little bit more straightforward with upper lowercase like this, as opposed to doing all caps. All caps I don't mind for the subtitles and titles of your recipes, but we definitely don't want to do body copy in all caps, alright? So I will say that there is something about your previous layouts that I do enjoy seeing. I like how you just used straight typography for this one right here for your title. So I think this was a very nice way of just seeing how the space looked. I would like to see if you wanted to bring some of that bold text that you have here, maybe back in this one right here. So maybe think about that a little bit more and see if you can bring some of that back in. I'm also not seeing your pull quote yet, so I'd like for you to incorporate your pull quote for this final round. Alright? And I do have to say there is something about this particular layout right here. I think this one is stronger for me than this one for your connotative, and the reason why is I like that it looks like you have that roll and you have your ingredients list here. I would just caution you about upside down text, but I really like this version and hope you go back to it if you can. But what I like about this one is that the text slightly curves, and that's what I wish you did with this version right here. And I would call that your connotative, so maybe take this version right here, curve the text slightly like you have in this version right here, okay? And then I would say use this as your denotative. I hope that makes sense. I'm just trying to see your layouts from the previous weeks and just kind of compare where your strengths and weaknesses are, but I definitely think there were some things that were nice in the very beginning. But I think how you're organizing your information is definitely very strong. So let's revisit some of this if you'd like. I think this is definitely a strong version for you. Okay? Let's move on to Ricardo's work. So Ricardo, you did Pina Colada. So I think, here, let me see if I can pull up your version this week. Right. And then see if we can critique that now. I like to look at the one from the previous week and this week just because you can get to see a little bit more about how you're doing performance-wise and just kind of compare it. Sometimes looking at older versions does help, all right? Because you can say, oh, things seemed a little bit stronger in this version versus last version. So this is good. We took out the rectangle piece here, so we're doing this with the text, which is great. We got rid of the upside down text, which is also awesome, so keep that up. I like how you're doing the same kind of treatment with your instructions, I believe, or I think this is your ingredients list. So from small to large and just giving that effect of like going closest to the viewer and then farther out. So that's an interesting look and feel. And then I think this one has some nice qualities to it. I would just fix some of those weird areas right here where the X, and well, not the X, well, like the D. There's some interesting angles happening here. I just wonder if there's a way to just kind of just make them a little bit cleaner. That's all. Just little tweaks with the selection tool, right? But I definitely think this is a stronger version for you, right? Let's go to your denotative. I think this is much better. This reads a lot more clearly. Pina colada as opposed to pina, we don't know which way this is, but I think this looks great. I like how you've set up your bold text this way and used the lighter font. One thing you might want to think about here is see if you can use this as a way to enforce your grid. So, I'm putting some rules over here for where your larger letter forms are going to stay. What if parts of your text sit on some of those areas where it becomes, it reinforces that grid even more? Because right now, your ingredients list doesn't really match your grid. So either the top or bottom part of your letter form can be your grid, as you can see. So see if you can utilize that a little bit better for this version. Okay. And I'm not seeing a pull quote. I need to see a pull quote in here for your recipe for both versions. So see if you can include that somewhere. And then I would like to see how you use this space a little bit better right here. Maybe there's something about this that you can bring back in here, but I think that would be like a nice juxtaposition right here with this space and just kind of eliminate this white area right here, or maybe this is where your pull quote sits. But I think this is a much stronger version than when you had last week, so definitely good job. I think it's going in the right direction. Okay. Let's move on next to Jessica. So Jessica, you did spaghetti, so let's take a look at your newer version, right? So your newer version right here is looking a lot cleaner now that we got rid of the shadows over here and also some of those movements with the text. I think this looks a lot nicer right now. It's a lot cleaner, and I think this kind of looks like the dials on the oven, so I think this matches well with your recipe. And looking at some of those areas here in your connotative, I think it's a nice pairing between the two, and they kind of mimic each other in a nice way. So I think it's a good set to turn in, actually. One thing I would just say, just looking at both, especially where you have put your pull quote in here, is see if there's a way to soften up this curve. This curve seems very, very steep, and I'm wondering if there's a way to just make it a little bit softer like these curves over here. I know you're trying to mimic this area right here, but remember, you can, if you want, put your pull quote maybe around one of those circles that you have for the sauce or the pasta or finish. So that can be also another area for you to explore. Okay? But I think if you want to use this space a little bit more clearly, this curve is a little bit too steep. I would say maybe soften it up a little bit. Alright, but otherwise I think this is a good pair between those two. Alright, so good job. Alright, so let us move next to Aimee's work. So Aimee, I think this is good. One thing that I would just make sure of is alignment. So with alignment, just make sure areas like where you have eggs, where your ingredients list is, sugar, heavy cream, mascarpone, on and on. You start to use that as a baseline for other elements of your text, such as your instructions. So right now, I feel like your instructions list does not really follow a grid or any kind of alignment. So I would like to see if there's a way to make those areas right here with the rules that I just created line up more with your instructions list, and that way you can see a little bit more clearly as to how things align a bit more properly. I think once you do that, you'll start to see this becoming a little bit more balanced. This part of the page being more balanced with this part of the page, all right? And this is what we want to do. We want to try to take a look at elements we've created on the page, such as this large text, and see how that can reinforce other parts of our page in a way that makes sense. So now we're creating a more one-to-one relationship with this element right here with the ingredients and the instructions, right? And I think this works nicely with the rest of your layout because we are putting things nicely in a way that aligns well. So we just want to make sure we do that for the rest of our layout. Okay? That would be my only feedback for you, but I think otherwise this is a really good set. I'm very happy with where you landed on this, and I think the use of color works really nicely, and I think going with a sans serif for your connotative versus a serif for your denotative is a nice balance between the two. They complement each other. So I think this is a very good set for you. And definitely just make some of those changes and I think you'd be in a good place. Okay? I think that was it for this group. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone. So yeah, this is group 2. I will see you guys in the next video for group 3.